Not every story has to start with once upon a time, but it couldn't fit better into this one. Once upon a time, the god Poseidon had a son named Lelex, the first king of the region called Laconia. With the naiad Cleocaria, he sired Meles, and Meles sired King Eurotas. Eurotas had no heir, so he married his daughter to the son of Zeus, Lacedaemon. In the future, the polis and its lands would sometimes be referred to by the name of the new king Lacedaemon. But today, we know it by the name of King Lacedaemon's wife, the daughter of Eurotas, Sparta. The later king of Sparta, Tyndareus, had 4 children with his queen Leda, Clytemnestra, Helen, Castor, and Pollux. But not all of them were his. The god Zeus was smitten with Leda, and he descended in the form of a swan and laid with her. In the same night she laid with her husband. She became pregnant and birthed 2 eggs, one for each of her lovers. Who came from what egg, we will never know, but it's generally accepted that one of Zeus's children was the infamous Helen. Helen would later be abducted by the hero Theseus, king of Athens, and while he was away, she had to be rescued by Castor and Pollux, who sacked Athens, beginning a long rivalry between the 2 cities. After this, Helen was married to the prince of Mycenae, Menelaus, while her sister Clytemnestra was married to his brother Agamemnon. But we all know the story of what happened next. Paris, prince of Troy, came to Sparta on the pretense of a diplomatic mission before eloping with Helen. Menelaus and Agamemnon called upon the might of all Greece to bring her back, and with mighty warriors like Achilles and cunning generals like Odysseus, and finally with the legendary Trojan horse, the Greek alliance destroyed Troy, and Helen returned with Menelaus to Sparta. Meanwhile, Heracles' descendants, the Heraclidae, faced the wrath of his rival King Eurystheus, who expelled them from Peloponnesus, and they took refuge in the land of Doris, becoming part of a people known as Dorians. Many generations later, the Dorians migrated back into Mycenaean Greece and conquered it, centering themselves in Sparta and the surrounding cities. The following Dorian conquests would go across the Mediterranean, including to Italy and North Africa. The Dorian invasion would usher in an era known as the Greek Dark Ages, because so few records remain of them, and the era of Mycenaean Greece would become an era of myth and legend. There are many versions of these stories, of which this is only one. However, the Spartans of the New Age of Greece would take great pride in these legends, laying claim to the heritage of Heracles and the divinity of Zeus. How's that for an intro? My name's Zosimus Tarkus, and today we are playing Rome Total War II Divided Impera as Sparta. Rulers of Laconia, masters of the Peloponnesian League, and society of merciless, disciplined warrior citizens. For hundreds of years, all of Greece lived in their shadow and tread lightly in their presence. Before we start, I will make it clear that I am playing this campaign in normal difficulty. The mod is difficult enough as it is, and I'm playing this so that I can ramble about the historical context and its nuances. After all, you know what they say, the pen is mightier than the sword, and about as strong as the spear. Also, I'm assuming that everyone watching this vaguely knows some of the basics of Greek history, that Alexander the Great was a great general, the Athenians were smart, and the Spartans were strong. If you didn't know that, now you do.
The people of Epirus are fools. Having utterly failed to conquer Rome, they crawl back and presume to conquer Greece. To try is not to win. They will know this when you meet them in battle. Macedon may join you, but they are no better in the end. Alexander's conquests have left them with delusions of grandeur. They will be checked, as will every other aggressor. You may fare better working with Athens and other true Greek states, but history has often taught otherwise. Ultimately, trust only in Sparta, and you will prevail.
So as you can see, as the Spartans of the 3rd century before Christ, we have 2 major rivals. Up north, there's the kingdom of Macedonia, ruled by the descendants of Alexander the Great's general Antigonus Monophthalmus. And in the west, there's the kingdom of Epirus, founded by Alexander the Molossian, uncle of Alexander the Great. Currently, Epirus is ruled by King Pyrrhus, who menaced the Romans in the Pyrrhic Wars and later failed to besiege and conquer Sparta. Our shonen protagonist is Arius, king of the Achaeid dynasty. Technically, there's also supposed to be a co-ruler from the Eurypontid dynasty, and our power is also supposed to be limited by an assembly of citizens and the Gerousia, which is sort of like the Roman Senate. But in practice, nobody got in our man Arius's way. Sparta has a history to rewrite, and we're going to lead the way. Let's look at our other neighbors. Our favorite nerds, the Athenians. They haven't been a serious military power since we kicked their asses in the Peloponnesian War. There's also Egypt, ruled by the descendants of Alexander's general Ptolemy Soter, and the Aetolian League, who around this time fought off the invading Gauls. Luckily, they're all fairly easy to reason with, which means that our mission to rebuild the Spartan hegemony, or make Sparta great again, is beginning swimmingly. Anyways, let's recruit a spy. Phaedra, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a young woman, and a looker too. Spartan women weren't warriors, but they were certainly muscle girls. They wrestled, boxed, ran, and threw javelins, and had to be the pinnacle of physical condition in hopes they could bear strong children. They were smart too, with many of them learning music, philosophy, and history. So sorry, Redditors, but these ladies have standards. And for that matter, unlike other Greeks, they actually consummate their marriage when they're legal. Homo hippies. I am so funny. Spartan society was initially divided into three classes: the warrior citizens, the freeman non-citizens, and the slave underclass. Over time, though, these divisions became blurred. Homoioi literally means similar or alike, and these were citizens who owned land worked by slaves, which supported them as they devoted themselves entirely to war. Over time, though, land became concentrated in the hands of a few rich homies, while others began to lose their citizenship due to the inability to pay taxes or pay for the traditional Spartan education, the agage. This is why over here they're depicted as a small nobility. Then there's the perioikoi, which means living nearby. They were freemen who lived in nearby cities that were self-governing but answered to Sparta. They did much of the skilled work in Laconia, since the Spartans just owned property and fought. And finally, there's the helots. The helot status fluctuated across Spartan history based on how much they outnumbered the homos by, beginning with them as state-owned serfs before they finally joined the army as hoplites and pressured the government into giving them their freedom. Here we have the losers. In the classical period, Pyrrhus of Epirus was revered as a great general, but although he was an excellent tactician, he really didn't win any wars. He lost his war with the Romans and then failed to defeat Sparta, after which he died in Argos. The funny nerd man wants money to pay for fancy marble statues. Lycurgus, the writer of the original Spartan constitution, wanted the Spartans to assemble and vote outside, since doing it in an ornate auditorium would distract them from important political issues. Never mind, they need cash to fight off the Antes. Looks like war is coming to Greece, and war is profitable. At the end of the 3rd century BC, the Macedonians put the nail in the coffin of Sparta's hopes of controlling Greece again. Sparta, with a heavily reformed military, and the Aetolian League attacked their neighbors, the Achaean League. The Achaeans went to the king of Macedonia, Antigonus Docin, and told him that if the Spartans won, their alliance would come for Macedon next. Docin agreed to help, and soundly defeated the Spartans at the Battle of Salasia. But instead of destroying or enslaving them, he spared the city, which, knowing the Spartans, they must have hated. Obviously, these people are a problem, one we need to nip at the bud.
Hercules has nothing on me.
Bold words to say around his children. I'm leaving Arius' son Acritatus to hold down the fort. Acritatus led the defense of Sparta against Pyrrhus, and when Pyrrhus sent a cohort of 2,000 Gauls to attack the city from the rear, the prince outmaneuvered them and fought them off with only, guess how many? 300 men. The people of Sparta were so overjoyed by this victory that they beseeched him to make love to his wife and bear strong children. Let's have Arius remarry so he can have some company on campaign, and let's get Acritatus some cake as well. And not just any cake, superior cake. Let's see what the nerds think of this superior merchandise. I didn't mean it that way. I guess Acritatus' wife prefers brains over brawn. The real wife of Acritatus, Chilonis, originally was married to Cleonymus, King Arius' uncle. But Cleonymus had such bad anger issues that not only did his people choose Arius over him, but Chilonis left him for the younger Acritatus. And during the siege by Pyrrhus, who Cleonymus had invited to attack Sparta, Chilonis declared that she would rather kill herself than return to her old husband. I think we'll win this. In fact, I'm so sure that I'll give our people a tax cut, paid for by our future ill-gotten gains. It's time! Spartans, assemble the phalanx! And here they come, the hordes of Antigonus, ready to fight for the motherland and run to their certain deaths. The horses are stopping before the wall of spears, as would any creature with a hint of self-preservation. Probably gonna kick myself later for keeping my horses outside the fort, but it makes sure that none of their cavalry can go around and flank me. The AI probably wouldn't do that anyways, but I like to keep a suspension of disbelief. Hey, it's Autistic Sparta, not Spartan min-max. The Macedonians are using their classic formations of pikemen, wielding their long lances two-handed with shields fastened to their shoulders to protect them against missile fire. Luckily, my hoplites are disciplined enough that they can take advantage of its vulnerable flanks. The real Macedonian army made use of combined arms warfare, including cavalry, light infantry, and archers to complement the phalanx. But since I've got them caught in a choke point in which they're the ones in the offensive, I have the decisive advantage. Still, imagine how terrifying this must be. To have hundreds of long, jagged spears reaching for you in a brutal melee. No matter how bad things get for you, I doubt it'll ever get this bad. The cavalry battle outside is over. My hippies lost, but I thinned their own horsemen's numbers in return. Meanwhile, a second elite Macedonian command unit is trying to attack my rear. I would like to have my Basilius fight him in sort of single combat, but I'd probably lose, since his bodyguard outnumbers mine. So I'm just going to quickly get rid of him with whatever troops I have in the far back of the melee. Also, why is there a maximum of 225 hippies in my bodyguard? How can it be anything other than 300? My homies seem to have drawn the short stick. Historically, this has never been good, since the elite citizen soldiers can't be replaced easily, and they need to be in large enough numbers to keep their slaves in check. Ugh, I smell something burning. The Antis are exhausted now, while my own troops are still active, so naturally, they'd rather live to fight another day. Fortunately for them, that's a request I can't fulfill. And there you have it. Sparta defeats the Antigonids. Less than an hour in, and we're already rewriting history. Here come my allies, cleaning up like the Jannies they are. It's okay, Sparta can be generous for once. At this point, the Antis know their fate is sealed. Of course, Pyrrhus thought that when he besieged Sparta and was proven dead wrong. Will I be proven wrong? Let's take a look. Now, phalanx, militia, and archers make Greek garrisons a pain to overcome. But one of my biggest worries is definitely the garrison general's bodyguard unit. These hoplites are some of the most well-armored phalanx troops in Greece, and when they get to my center, they aren't going to go down easy. Otherwise, I'm keeping what's left of my cavalry back. Putting them in the melee that's about to ensue would mean certain death, and I'd rather keep them intact to run the enemy down when they flee. Sparta is a defensive army, so I'm going to need them to come to me. And they will. After they peppered me with arrows, though. By Ares, of all my phalanxes to shoot at, why did it have to be my homies? At last, here comes the clash. 1,000 spears reaching for 1,000 rears. The garrison professional and elite hoplites are definitely set to take down a few score of Sparta's finest. But I hold the winning card. My mercenary swordsmen have finished chasing away their archers, and now have their opening to cut off the Macedonian escape and tear them apart. And the battle is won! My horsemen go out to cut down as many fleeing hoplites as they can, and for my slightly outnumbered but leagues better trained Spartan army, the victory is decisive. Macedon is mine. Unfortunately though, this beautiful city and all the lands beyond it are separated from my landlocked capital by my allies. I'm going to have to deal with Athens and the Aetolians sooner or later if I want to dip into that sweet, sweet trade income. But whether they willingly join my empire or I have to betray them, time will tell. Either way, Sparta's conquest of the Mediterranean has begun. I still might have to deal with the barbarians in the north, but other than that, expanding my empire should go smoothly. Assuming, of course, I don't have to deal with a little problem to the west. But that's for another video. I might make a sequel to this later, but for now, that brings an end to my YouTube debut. With that, this is Zosimus Tarkus, closing his book for another day.